This week's Grandmaster Nightfall Strike is the Lightblade, which is notorious for being one of the most difficult GMs in the game, but today we're going to cover how to make this GM much easier for your team. So with that being said, let's get to it. Let's cover loadouts first. This GM gives you the opportunity to run two different options for your heavy weapon, which is nice to have. Similarly to last week, we'll have two players running identical loadouts. For players 1 and 2, run Arbalest or Izanagi's Burden in your primary slot for anti-barrier champs. For the secondary, run a pulse rifle that is either arc or solar. This is to take care of the two unstoppable champions you'll face throughout the strike, and to deal with all the arc and solar elemental shields in this GM. For your heavy, run either Storm Chaser or Hothead depending on what your team wants to run. For player 3, run either Ignition Code for the blinding grenades or Arbalest for anti-barrier. For the secondary, run a pulse rifle to also take care of unstoppable champs. The elemental burn of it doesn't matter as much since the shields are already covered by players 1 and 2, so don't worry about that. For the heavy, run either Storm Chaser or Gallahorn depending on whether your team wants to run rockets or linears for the strike. Regarding subclasses, I'd highly recommend running at least one Void Hunter for this GM so that you can get through the lamp section easier. Otherwise, you'll want to run crowd control supers, as adds are a sizable reason for why this GM can be rough. For that, I'd recommend Stasis Warlocks, Solar Titans, and even Arc subclasses thanks to the damage output and utility from Storm Grenades. Regarding mods, run Thermo Shock Plating, Concussive Dampener, and Void Resistance to make sure you're receiving less damage from most sources in this GM. Now that we've covered all of that, let's get to the guide. Starting off, have your team run down the stairs and damage the Lightblade enough to send him away. From there, looking at where the Lightblade once was, run to the left side of the area and begin to clear adds. This will bring the two barrier champions in this area to the middle, below the bridge to allow your team to easily kill them. Once the barrier knights are dead, you can head to the next area. When you reach the next room, kill the two groups of Hive that will be by the entrance of this room. While you're dealing with these adds, keep an eye on the Hive Guardian in the room. If they pop their super, run down the hall that you entered the room from and stay there until the super is gone. Your team will want to clear out most of the adds in this room, and once the adds are dead, focus your attention on the Hive Guardian. Once the Guardian is dead, finish the ghost and turn your attention to the Hive Guardian that spawns by the hallway. Once your team kills this Hive Guardian, rotate back to the hallway, as you'll get more adds in the middle, including another Hive Guardian and a Barrier Knight. Kill adds, then focus on the Knights in the middle, and if your team needs it, be sure to get a finisher on the Knights, then move on. As your team pushes forward, you'll come across a ship with some Acolytes and two Barrier Knights. Finish these adds and hop on the ship. When your team hops on the ship, you should begin to focus the Acolytes on the sides of the ship as you're flying down to alleviate some pressure. Your team will then need to stop focusing the Acolytes once the Shrieker that is in the path opens up, which should then be hard focused by your team, or else the Shrieker will just farm your team. Once your team kills the Shrieker, jump over to this cauldron thing on the side of the ship and jump up to where the Void Orb is. Doing this will let your team get a high ground spot on the adds on each side, but still be wary of the shields that the Hive Guardians can throw. Once both sides of adds are dead, take the Void Orbs and dunk them into their respective pedestals to drop the barrier. Once your team gets back on the ship, let it take you outside, where you should then jump off onto one of the side platforms to get to handle adds. Once you clear one bridge, use the ledges on the left and right sides to get to the next bridge. Once you've cleared all bridges, take the portal to be teleported to where the ship is at. If your team has an Omni Void Hunter, then they can actually just invis your entire team on the ship, and your team can just simply skip all of the adds, so choose whichever way works best. Once you've made it to the Thrall Swarm part of this ship section, jump to the platform that the ship is facing, and have your team toss grenades on the ship to kill the Thrall that jump on there. While doing this, be careful of Thrall that may catapult you off this platform, as it is very possible. Once all the Thrall are dead, get back on the ship and move on. After the ship section, you have the lamp section. Start by clearing the scored enemies that spawn and run through the foggy gate to reveal the lamp. Kill the light moths around the lamp to prevent a teammate from getting obliterated by these. Once you've reached the lamp, turn around and kill the scored enemies following you until your Weight of Darkness debuff clears itself. Once it does, move on to the next lamp. Having an Invis Hunter will make this area light work, but if you don't have one, just make sure to spam grenades at enemies to ensure that you don't die. Once you've reached the final lamp, run through the last foggy gate to clear everyone's debuffs and move on. Once you've made it through the lamps, kill the scored enemies in the cave and get a finisher on the Ogre to replenish heavy ammo. Once you make it to the other end of the cave, begin focusing the big ogres in the room first, as once they're dead, you should only have a few enemies including the champs to worry about. It's worth noting that you should be careful of Screebs who will jump up to the opening in the cave. Not paying attention to this will send your team back to orbit. Once you've killed all enemies and gotten finishers on champs if needed, move on to the final boss. Dropping down the pit will start the fight. There is an easy strategy that makes this fight significantly easier for players, and that strategy looks something like this. When the fight starts, have one player take the boss's aggro while the other two players kill adds. The player with the boss's aggro should be jumping onto and off platforms around the boss's main platform. The reason as to why you'll want to do this is because it will cause the boss to be in an infinite jumping loop, which will prevent him from attacking other players. You should also not go too fast, as if you jump on and off the platforms too fast, the boss will shoot at you for a moment, which can easily kill you. Similarly to other GMs, ad spawns are tied to the boss's health bar. Those spawn ties can be found on screen now, so feel free to pause if you need these. When the boss loses a third of his health bar, he will teleport to the middle, spawning 2 Arcanites and a Light Bearer. Once you kill these 3 enemies, the boss will exit his immune phase, where he will spawn 2 Barrier Knights and some adds, and continue to roam around. Kill these knights while getting a finisher if necessary, and continue to damage the boss. He'll spawn champs one more time before his immune phase, so once he loses half of his health, kill the champs and drop the Lightblade down to a third of health, where the final immune phase will happen. Similarly to the first phase, kill all the knights that spawn in, and once they're dead, the boss will exit his immune phase. Your team will have one last set of champs to kill, which will spawn at the 25% mark, so drop the boss's health to 25% and kill those 2 champs. Once the champs are dead, melt the boss for an easy completion of the Lightblade Grandmaster Nightfall. That wraps up today's guide on the Lightblade Grandmaster. If you found today's video useful, consider dropping a like and subscribing for more Destiny 2 content dropping every week. I know that this week's Nightfall weapon is the Mindbender's Ambition, so I'll be making a video covering the best perks to go for on it, which should drop tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. Also, be sure to stop by my YouTube channel for live streams that will happen all throughout the week. Finally, follow me on all of my other social media accounts linked in the description below. With that being said, I'm SniperKH, and I'm out. Good luck with gaming.